I'm Lexi Davis, a love embodiment coach who helps people create a love that feels like home, and I'm here to bring more romance and playfulness into the world. I'm also an international retreat host, vibe curator, and human connector. I serve people through my business, Alive to Enjoy, and this podcast where I invite guests from around the world to sprinkle their wisdom and expand your perspective so you can create the deepest love you possibly can reach in this lifetime. I also want you to live the most joyous life, whatever that looks like to you, and I hope that this slice of the internet brings you lots of smiles and helps you keep your heart open. Thank you for choosing Heart Snuggles to be in your ears each week, and I'm so glad you're here with me. Welcome, Heart Snugglers. We are so excited. I have the first couple of Heart Snuggles today on the podcast, and I feel so happy to introduce you guys to them. I still haven't met them in person, but I know I will one day. And I want you guys to go ahead and tell them a little bit about you.
Love it. Let's do it.
Individually, right?
Yeah, individually. Or either way. Yeah.
Hey, Heart Snugglers. My name is Alina. I am a feminine empowerment coach and medicine woman. And yeah, I do a lot of work helping women heal, helping women stand in their power, helping women be in their pleasure, and ultimately, manifest all their desires, including their divine partner.
And my name is Kevin Pasco. I somehow stumbled across becoming a men's coach on my own journey of getting really good at relationships, figuring them out, trying to see what works and what doesn't, and ultimately being really happy and fulfilled through them. So we have a lot to share, which I'm very excited about on this podcast. Like we said, it's the first one that we've done together, which is really exciting. And I think it's going to be a beautiful conversation. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yay. Okay, so the first question of the podcast, which you guys can answer individually, was what was the last random act of kindness someone did for you?
Kevin was out of town and I was taking out all the recycling and all the trash, which I never do because Kevin takes care of that. And I was in the elevator, filled the entire elevator with all the trash. And this man was like, wow, that's a lot of trash. And I was like, I know, my man's out of town. I normally don't be doing this. And he was like, I'll help you. And he took out all the trash.
We love that.
So bless him. His name was David.
Thank you, Dave.
Shout out to David. For me, I don't know if I can say this fully random, but I had a beautiful birthday celebration with my family this last weekend, and I ended up booking this amazing, incredible Airbnb for just my close family for us to spend some time together. And they ended up just surprising me with tons of beautiful presents of taking care of things, buying me food. We went golfing and my brother paid for that. And it was just so nice to be able to give, but at the same time, receive and, have a very nice flow between the giving and receiving. So that was beautiful.
That's so sweet. I love when especially men, get to be in that state of being spoiled because I feel like it's not really that way most of the time.
Yeah, I was just talking with a client about that, where you don't want to be in your flow state, feminine all the time. But when you're in your masculine, you can't be there all the time either. You need to be in a flowing, receiving state. And you almost have to remind yourself that it's okay to do that as a man. And so when you do that, you let it kind of come in and flow to you. It feels amazing.
So good. And the second question is, what is something you wish you could tell your younger self about sex or pleasure that you wish you knew?
Oh, there's so much.
Oh, I got one. I actually think that it's who you really are. So when the mask is off and you're naked and you can just be yourself, often it's weird sometimes because you're like, oh, there is no mask anymore. I can't be covered. And instead the feeling of knowing, oh, this is who you are and it's okay and you're comfortable and it's good to be naked. And it actually took me a long time to even feel that way. So I feel like that is a really good thing to know for me 10 years ago.
Yeah,
Agree.
That's beautiful.
Yeah,
I love that. Yeah, I think I would tell myself to just pause and be in all of your sexual energy, because growing up, even as a little girl, I had so much arrows coursing through me. And it was almost like you know, you feel that shame, you feel that guilt, you feel like, what the fuck is wrong with me? Why am I like this? Oh my God, it's so much. And just to pause and be like, it's natural, baby girl. Like you said, it's you. And it's okay. There's no shame. It's beautiful. It's the purest energy that there is.
So true. That was great. Thank you. And now I'd love to hear who you guys, like where you were at before you met each other. What was going on in your lives?
Yeah, this is a good question.
Yeah.
Honestly, I love talking about this because me personally, I was in a deep healing phase of my life, healing like sexual trauma, healing childhood wounding, healing mother-father wounding, all these things. But I was in such a state of like celebration with my sisters. So I was like hanging out with my friends. I lived with two girls, Isabel and Bianca, and we just had so much sister time, and I got so much healing for that from that. And I was also in learning tantric arts and really like doing lots of self-pleasure. So I felt so fulfilled. Like I wasn't looking for a man, I wasn't searching. I felt fulfilled within myself, within my sister relationships, and the pleasure that I was giving myself. And I was just in a place of being very open at the same time. Like I wasn't like, oh no, I'm with my sisters and I'm healing. I was like, I'm in this state where like I'm taking care of myself and I'm totally fulfilled, but I'm open to whatever comes my way. And whoever I meet, whoever I walk, whoever, if I'm walking on the street and I literally make eyes like with somebody, I'm like, who knows where that could lead? You know, you never really know. So I was in that state of just being open and very happy.
Cute.
Yeah.
And I was really similar, and I don't think that's a coincidence that we found each other that way, because I like previously had been in some relationships, and I don't know if I consciously thought this. I think it was subconscious, but it was like, I don't know if I can ever be okay being single. Like I've had friends that are like perpetually single, and then other friends that are always in relationship, and I was the one always in relationship. So being single was really scary. And then I did it, and I was like, wait, actually, this is awesome. I love it. And I wanted to do it for longer, or I guess I intended to do it for longer. But it got to a certain point where I was like, you know what? I could do it, but I actually think if an amazing relationship came along, I would clearly accept it. I wouldn't push it away to just continue being single.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened when we met. So I feel like part of the magic in that was just being okay with what I've got. And life is always so ironic when you just like don't really care, or you're like not even focused on it, and then boom, it just pops into your life. And that's exactly like, we got introduced through a mutual friend at the end of a trip when I was visiting the city that you lived in, and it was just super unexpected. And here we are today. So
we didn't even live in the same city. Like a little side note, he was in Canada and I was living in San Diego at the time, and he was just like passing through visiting his friend who was also my friend. And at that dinner when we met, I remember shaking your hand and being like, oh, his accent's cute because he's got a little Canadian accent. And at that dinner, he asked me, he looks at me and he's, so what are you most excited for this year? It was February 22. And I was like, oh, I'm just excited. I feel like life's going to take me on this big adventure, and I don't know what's going to happen. I just feel like it's going to be so amazing. And he looked at me and he was like, me too. Little did we know, like we were going to be that person for like that.
That was the
adventure. That was the adventure.
Yeah.
And it was like this surreal moment of, oh, cool. But even in that moment, we didn't even know. I was intrigued by him. I was like, oh, he's cool. Wow. I just met this really amazing man. But I wasn't like, oh, I'm going to date him. I'm going to try to hook up with him. I'm going to whatever. I was just like, whatever. Cool.
Yeah, and how are you feeling?
Me? Like in that moment?
Yeah.
He thought fine.
Oh, what I was feeling, you know what? It was very similar. The way that I felt, there was no expectations, and there was a feeling of interest and intrigue. Like, you know, when there's something there, like sometimes you think, oh, that person, oh my God, they're so alluring, but it's because they like check a box in your brain, like in your head. But instead you meet someone and you're like, Oh, I can't even put into words what this is, but there's like a feeling, there's something there. And that's more in like the heart and the body. And that's a different feeling than when you're checking off the mental box of a certain type of person that you meet.
Yeah.
And it's crazy too, because when we met at that dinner, we had a 3-hour dinner, and our friend, she's amazing, but it was like we were on a date and she was the third wheel, but we weren't, because we were just chatting and getting along so well. And then he leaves to Canada the next day. We get each other on Instagram. We're just like chatting, commenting off stories, nothing too crazy. And then he just comes in and hey, do you want to come to Canada? And I was like, you know what? Why not? You're a cool guy. His friends vouched for him too, because obviously I'm not going to go to another country with a stranger, but at the same time, like intuition, I trust myself. I had good vibes, and his friends were like, Kevin is like such a good guy. They had nothing but good things to say about him. So I was like, green flag. And at the time I was like, oh, I want a relationship, or not. I wasn't looking for a relationship, but I was like, that's what I want. I'm not just trying to fuck around here. But when he invited me to Canada, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go, and literally no expectations. If nothing happens, great. If it does, like at the very least, I get to connect with this really interesting person who like I get really good vibes from. But it was still like that non-attachment, but also I'm gonna take a leap here and go to this other country with somebody I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And then when did you guys start to know that this was something more?
That first day that I was in Canada. It was crazy. We had a very intimate weekend. Like I brought some hot bae and cacao, and we had cacao ceremonies every morning. We were serving each other hot bae. There was one moment where I was like, the second day, just crying in your arms, and he's like holding me, and I'm like having an emotional release from the hot bae. And I'm like, damn, we're very intimate here. Like, we're going deep. And it was just the second day that we ever hung out.
Mm-hmm. And I think it also quenched the thirst of that I felt previously of I knew what worked in past relationships and what I was missing and what hadn't been there before. And so when I recognized very quickly that Alina had the things that I was looking for, opened me up to be like, okay, well, let's go into this. Let's like allow this to happen. And there's a very like natural connection because we're both, I mean, everybody's unique, but I think we are two cases of we are not for everyone. Like we're going to have a hard time dating certain people. So it's almost a nice thing because, you know, like is either going to work or it's not going to work. And we were obviously going in the direction of working. So we recognize that like pretty quickly.
What were some of those things that you were wanting that other partners didn't have?
Like a really like a fun, if I were to describe it off of what I was thinking back then, it's like fun, bubbly personality, social, good with other people, like I said before, spiritual. And I didn't really necessarily define what that meant, but you know, when you date someone who's just kind of like has good qualities but isn't on the same path as you, especially with the spiritual side, that's going to be a really challenging type of relationship. Having that openness to growth and wanting to go down the spiritual path, whatever that looks like, was definitely something that was really important. And fun. I mean, I need fun. Like this, I can't be like, I can be serious, but we need a level of fun and ease and just like a nice flowing energy between us.
Yeah.
And I got that like very quickly. Actually, in the dinner before, you know, I ended up coming back to Canada, those things were definitely being shown then. So that's why I put out the offer in the first place anyways. I wouldn't throw out a random offer unless I was pretty confident that it was going to be a good fit, you know?
Yeah, well, that's integrous of you because I feel like some men aren't in that same boat. So I love that you said that.
Yeah.
And what about you, Alina? What were the qualities he had that you're like, yes?
Open, just open and explorative. Explorative, that's the word, right? Exploratory.
Mm-hmm.
And just very present. I could tell at this point I was already very connected to myself. And when you have interactions with people, you can tell if they're connected to themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And it creates this, even if it's not sexual at all, when you're having an interaction with somebody and they're there fully, you feel that. And I was dating, and I very seldomly came across people who were actually present and there with themselves and with you. And so that was something that really turned me on. You know, presence. And somebody I could tell too right away, just from observing, that he was in his divine masculine. When I came to Canada, we ended up hanging out with his friends, and all of his friends loved him and they treated him well. And I feel like that is also a green flag. Like, I noticed that right away when men like don't have good quality friends around, or their friends are trying to hit on me, or their friends are like belittling them. I'm like, what's going on here? Mm-hmm. So that was a good sign. And also just like freedom to be myself. Like, I was just myself because I was at the point in life, and I'm sure you felt this too, Lexi, of I'm just going to be me from the very beginning, because if you don't like this, you can go. I'm not going to shapeshift into what I feel like people want me to be. I'm just going to be me so my people can find me. And Kevin was like really excited by all the weird things that I do. And also too with my sexual expression, because I've had most of my relationships, the men have tried to suppress it. They're really threatened by my big sexuality, whereas Kevin also has a big sexual expression. And so we kind of just ignite each other even more in that way.
And how was the sex from the beginning? Because sometimes even in like really beautiful relationships, it's not the best. Or sometimes it's the opposite.
It was amazing, literally from the very first time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was really cool actually too. We basically skipped over any awkward part or part that was weird or polite or just, I mean, it's like we got right to it. And going back to what I said earlier about like, you're just being who you are. And if you're okay doing that naked, I feel like that expression is going to come out a lot easier. So if you're one person doing that, but the other person isn't, then of course there's resistance. But if both people are doing that, and you both have a general like connection on what turns you on, how do you communicate, like what's your expression, then, you know, the puzzle pieces can fit together so much better. So it was great. And the cool thing too is it started really well, and high expectations. Well, we didn't have expectations, but it exceeded all high expectations. And then it's only gotten better since, as we've gotten deeper and gotten to know each other and figured out what we like and don't like. There's a lot of layers that you can go through. And I mean, we're not even close to getting to the end of it, I don't think.
No, it's crazy. Like, the more and more that we are intimate with each other, and we deepen our intimacy, like outside of the bedroom too, with just like being real with how we feel and handling conflict and all these things. We're like still discovering layers of our sexuality and like stepping into that even more, and just expanding more, because we do that for each other, and we are very aligned with our sexual desires as well. So that's helpful.
Yeah, definitely. That definitely helps. And it's so true. Like when you, after moving through conflict, the like energy is even stronger, and it builds so much of that sexual desire. So I was curious if there's anything that shocked you about what made your sex life better, or something that you tried that was like unexpected that you really enjoyed.
So we have both had times when we're like, we have certain desires that just aren't being fulfilled in past relationships. And of course, every relationship has that to some degree. I think it's more rare to have 100% of things be fulfilled. But I think there were some deeper desires, or even just curiosities of just going back to what you said about having openness. Like if someone's not open and you are open and you're like curious and wanting to try something, but they won't allow it, then that builds a sort of like resentment, or like a feeling of, oh, well, there's discord between us because of that thing. So when you meet someone who's, oh, I'm open, I'm curious too, what do you want to do? Do you want to try this? How is that? And you can explore together. You're just like, oh, I didn't see what this was like until now. Like now there's a whole new level that gets opened up. So I think that's like that's been like a very real theme for us, like ever since pretty much day one.
Yeah. And there's no judgment if something comes up and we're just like, maybe never expressed that or never tried it. It's just, yeah, because we're both freaks.
How do you say freaks? I love that girl, the Nasty Girl song.
Yes. It's so nice. And I do believe that there's a freak in every woman and every man, but there's just layers of shame and there's layers of like disgust and layers of fear, right? Because even there's a part of my sexuality that I'm even scared of because it's like, whoa, you know, there's layers to it. And same thing with Kevin, when I see this other side of him come through when we're having sex, and I'm like, whoa, there he is. And it can be scary for people. It's even scary for us, but we love it.
You lean in. What's the part of yourself that you're scared of?
I don't know if I would be scared of mine, but it's you don't really know how deep it goes until you get down there. And sometimes you get down there and you've realized, oh, we can take this further, or we can go like more into this energy. So if we have an experience where we're like, okay, well, you know, I'm largely more dominant, I would say 90+%, and Alina's more submissive, but you can also take that to so many different levels as well. There's a very light, playful level of that. There's deeper levels. There's role-playing levels. I mean, you can get so creative with what you're doing. And it's really cool because I think for people who have explored and done as much as we have, we still haven't really scratched the surface, yet we've done so much more than I think what a lot of quote unquote regular people have done, whatever regular means.
Yeah.
And it's just from dropping the fear and dropping the shame and dropping the whatever it is. And then you go, oh, okay, well, we can do that now. We're open to going to deeper levels. Yeah.
And it really brings another level of love and commitment, because ultimately commitment will set you free. And when you have that level of commitment and just being like, we're going to talk things through and being real with everything that comes up. Because for me, like tons of jealousy comes up, insecurity, abandonment. And it's been the most powerful healing 2 years of my life, because we've been together for 2 years. And it's been like a catalyst for so much expansion within myself, and also being able to just feel safe within like the container, because I'm here, I'm with it, I want you, I'm not going to leave you. And it's like real, you know, so I can really surrender into that and open even more and heal parts of myself that I wouldn't have really been able to heal without the reflection of him.
True.
Yeah.
Cute. I love this. And that also, when you were talking, it reminded me too of like with my ex, when sometimes he would bring out that super dominant, I would immediately go into fear, just thinking in my head, oh no, this isn't safe. But then when I actually felt the energy of how safe it was to be submissive as a woman, I feel like it's such a beautiful space to finally let yourself fully let go and feel that. So
yeah. Yeah, and it's really beautiful. I've heard somebody say this about BDSM, and I don't remember who it is, but it's like an opportunity for you to really play out smallness and to play out just like powerlessness. And when we have an opportunity to play that out in a dynamic like a sub and dom situation, you can allow it to be expressed instead of letting it squeak out of you in regular life when we do actually need to be in our power.
Oh, so good. And you were just kind of touching about it a little bit, but like how, we'll start with you, I guess, Alina, like how as a feminine do you support the masculine? And then we can switch to the other way.
Yeah, I think it's like nurturing, nourishing, being there for him and like holding space for his emotions, because this is also a thing that women talk about all the time on social media, the divine feminine, like I would just want a man who can hold space for my emotions. And absolutely. And he does that. But also, can you hold space for his? Right. And so making sure that I'm there to support him when he's going through it. And it's really interesting too. I feel like the universe just puts us in a place where he's going through it, and I am like this solid pillar of masculine energy that he can lean on. When I'm absolutely going through it and I'm just a mess in my shit, he's a solid pillar that I can lean on. And we're never going through it at the same time.
Thank God.
And so that's really nice. And yeah, I think just nourishing him, and that means more than like cooking and cleaning, because you do a lot of cooking and cleaning. Like, we don't have like traditional roles, but just taking care. Hey, are you like, how are you doing? What do you need? Listening to him when he speaks about anything, even if he's just yapping about something he's excited about. I'm all ears, even if I don't really give a fuck. Like, I care, but sometimes,
Yeah, I get it.
you know what I mean? And so, yeah, being there, celebrating him every day. I celebrate him every day. I am always like encouraging you and what you want to do. And yeah,
For sure. From my side, there's definitely the part of giving structure and safety, and you do that as well with me, but it comes from me to you, and it comes in a different way. So just the safety to feel secure and everything's okay. We are going in the right direction. We know where we're going and we're going in the right direction. We're doing it together. There's a level of just everything is going to be okay, even when things don't feel okay. And I think that's like part of the job, is to remember. Sometimes you lose it in the moments of chaos, or especially with a lot of emotion. I mean, I show emotion, I think a lot actually, but Alina can get lost in emotion, and a lot of women, that's a very common thing. And feelings are very valid, but at the same time, they're not always facts. You might feel a certain way and believe a certain reality when that's actually not true. And it's really good to have someone beside you to say, hey, the storm isn't as bad as you think it is. We're actually on a very safe boat right now. Everything is all good. So I think that's very important. And then to contrast that, having fun and really keeping things light and playful, because you have to do that. I mean, life is hard enough as it is and can be really crazy and feel really serious at times. So I feel like just having that play aspect and having fun is so needed.
Yeah. And I think one thing too to add is like being real as fuck with how you feel. Like, I feel like this is what kills intimacy. And I don't just mean like sharing with your partner that you love them, or sharing when they're upset, but like leaving nothing unsaid and putting everything on the table. And this is really fucking hard to do, because sometimes we feel things and we know inside we're like, this is irrational and ridiculous, but it's creating this visceral response in our body. And so therefore we need to share it, because even if it's not said, energy is always felt. Even if you're unconscious, you feel it, and it creates separation. It creates like barriers between the love. And so really just sharing everything that you feel moment to moment and creating the space for that. Kevin is really good at communicating. Almost sometimes I'm like, oh no, here we go. He's communicating again. What is it going to be? No. And then, I sit there and I listen wholeheartedly, and I make sure that I do that, because I feel like people have a pattern. I certainly have a pattern of thinking things or feeling things and being kind of ashamed or embarrassed about it. And, playing it off. I didn't just have this crazy fucking doomsday thought. And then I'm like, no, I have to share it. And Kevin does a really good job. I'll just be like, hey, I'm triggered. I'm not feeling good about this. And, he doesn't ever make me feel silly or stupid for sharing, or he just listens and he's okay. And I think that is so important for people in relationship to do, because we're always trying to hide, and you cannot hide with love, and you shouldn't. And when you don't hide, that's how you really get to the level of love that is like cosmic.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, love is like a sacred mirror. They are just constantly there to reflect everything back to you. And I also agree that is, I think, one of the number one most important qualities of the relationship is that honest communication. And like you said, it is so felt. It's like immediately, I feel like, especially the closer you are with them, like I could always tell when their energy is off, because you just know. For Kevin, do you find that, can you talk at any time, or do you prefer like when you're not in focus mode, or there's certain times? Because I find masculine often aren't always on, I guess is the word, to have these conversations.
Yeah, I definitely know what you're saying. I think it's like that about 10% of the time when I can't just I'm in a space that's just I'm too focused or I'm too exhausted or whatever to actually address something. But I think I used to be so non-confrontational when it came to communication. Like I would just let things happen. I would bottle things up inside and then I'd become passive aggressive. That was my pattern before. And I worked that out through going to really it took 3.5 years of therapy to get that out, along with a bunch of other things. But then I became so not afraid of confrontation and communication that it's like actually the opposite, where I will bring things up immediately. It's hard for me to sit on things now because I'm like, well, I know if I just communicate and we talk it through and we have a level-headed conversation that everything's going to be okay. But bottling things up and letting things wait is like one of my biggest pet peeves now. So yeah, I feel like learning that was like a massive game changer for just being able to say the thing and also say it with love. And like I used to say things with, a lot of built up emotion behind it. And that's not always the best thing to do because there are so many situations as couples where all you need to do is just be loving and caring and kind and say what you need to say, but from like, you think of a strong, loving parent when they don't just let you do whatever you want, but they're also not yelling and screaming at you either. In the middle is, hey, I understand what's going on. I still love you, but this can't happen again. Or I need you to consider this in the future. Or there is a gentle but firm nudge in that direction. So I just got really good at that. And now it's very addicting to be able to do that all the time and avoid years and years of pain. So it feels good.
My love, you've built a life, you've built the career, you've built the success. But when it comes to love and softening and receiving, you're always the one in control, always thinking, planning, and doing. What if you didn't have to? Soft Girl Season is your invitation to melt into life where you feel safe, supported, and adored, where you actually can trust men, trust God, and trust yourself. Inside, women have found their dream partners, started receiving clients with less effort, and watched their men step up to pamper, cherish, and adore them, all by learning how to soften into their feminine energy. They've gone from feeling numb and guarded to magnetic, deeply loved, and radiant. So if you're ready to stop over-functioning and start being treated like a queen, come inside Soft Girl Season and let yourself be the woman who has it all. Join us using the link in the show notes and receive instant access and start being provided for by God and men.
Yeah, it does. And not like devaluing, like he never devalues how I feel, even if he doesn't agree with it. If I don't agree with him, I'm not devaluing him or making him like, you're not like, why you gotta say that? That's stupid. That's crazy. What are you talking about? That's gaslighting, obviously. But yeah, being very conscious of that, because even if we're all good people and we're doing the work, those tendencies can come up when you're in a triggered state and somebody's telling you something you don't want to hear. And so being conscious in every moment. And I think that's what is a conscious relationship. Because I feel like that word is thrown around a lot. What a conscious relationship, conscious dating. What the fuck does that even mean? It means being consciously aware of what you're doing, what you're saying, and how you're reacting to things every moment.
I agree. I agree. I'm like, yeah. It like feels so scary at first, but like you just said, like feeling the reward of it's wait, this is so much better. And I'm curious, what do you do once you like, we're not always on it. So like when you hurt your partner, like how do you recover from that?
We've never hurt each other. I think maybe I've gotten my feelings hurt from, I've gotten my feelings hurt from something that you shared. But I know it wasn't intentional. He was sharing his feelings and then, I cried and he held me. And have I ever hurt you?
I don't even think it's big enough to say being hurt, but other feelings have come up, whether it's annoyance or feeling like just being very short and dismissive. And those are kind of like triggers and warning signs a little bit. If you let those go on for too long, then of course, yes, you're going to get bigger, feelings to come in. And we've had a few times where we say something or we get into, a little I don't even want to call it a fight, a disagreement. And
Yeah.
then we'll give a little bit of time to cool off. And then after that, that time apart will usually show like what happened. So I will say, oh yeah, I think I was being too confrontational and was not considerate enough. And I said something that was too blunt, and I see how that was not right for the situation. Right. So I'll see that and I'll come back and say, hey, I totally see what happened here. I'm sorry. And then she's already, I know, it's okay. And then we come together and we make it work. And that's just the fact that we understand fully what went on, instead of being caught in the patterns of, well, I have to act this way when I'm hurt because that's my way of defending myself, and I need to do this and that and follow this pattern that I've done for years. And we just don't really do that at all.
Yeah. And we're both really aware of like when we're in our inner children, because sometimes it's little Kevin and little Alina just like in the kitchen, and we're just like little kids. And then sometimes when it gets a little too heavy and we're like, then we'll just be like, okay, hey, and then we'll hug. And then sometimes we'll like squeeze and we'll go and let it out.
That works too. Being able to just express the frustration of your little kid is a great way, instead of letting it bottle up inside of you.
You make me angry, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna add that touch in those really heated moments, I found is so, it brings you back. Because for a second, when you're like on opposite teams, like you feel that energy of separation, then you touch again, it's wait, we love each other. And just that can help so much.
Completely.
What are some other things that you have found that really keep your romance and aliveness of your relationship?
I feel like intentional separation is good, like with us living together. So at the beginning of the relationship, we're long distance, and that was too much, distance and separation. Then we live together, and we also work, from home as well. We have separate offices, but we're in the house a lot. So having some separation is really great, because you need to be able to miss each other. You need to be able to want each other and have that, space and separation. And fun for me. I think it's really like focusing on fun. And we've had lots of moments or weeks when we're just like, oh my God, it's too much. It's too crazy. I'm too tired. I'm too overwhelmed, blah, 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 whatever. And then we just come back to the fun element. I feel like that always reignites it.
It does.
Because I have some clients, or I've coached some clients before in the past, that they're not used to having a lot of fun in relationship. They have fun when they're dating at the beginning, and then it kind of, fizzles out, and you get used to the daily, 9 to 5 life of living. And that's kind of a relationship killer and an attraction killer. So it is really good when you can focus on bringing those moments of lightness and fun, whatever that looks like for you. So I feel like those two things are really big.
Yeah, I would agree. The fun piece. And I feel like we get reset when we go and hang out with friends and just go out and get dressed nice, and also just like celebrating each other. It seems so simple, but it's so fucking important to really stop and witness your partner and all the things they've been doing and how amazing they are and how great they are.
So cute. And it's always just those little things, right? It's like that much, but it's just that intention and awareness.
Exactly. We got some new clothes and we were doing like a little fashion show, and I was like, yes, oh my gosh, she looks so good. Oh, and it was genuine, but yeah, it's just fun like that. And we're always laughing, like laugh, make jokes.
Yeah. I don't know how one of my best friends I guess still is in this partnership, and she kept telling us how she doesn't have fun with him. And we looked at her and we're like, what are you talking about? How could you ever be in a relationship where you're not having fun? That blows my mind. Because one of the most important to me and you guys, I'm hearing, it's one of the most important things. And she is such a fun, silly person. And yeah, it's crazy what love can make us do, what we think it needs to be, or you know what I'm saying? What happens when people get stuck in these partnerships that aren't actually aligned, and they just settle for that.
And it's out of fear of I'm not going to get anybody better. Or I hear this a lot with my clients. Oh, he's a good guy and he's good to me. I'm sorry, but that's amazing and good for him and you, but also that's not enough. And you're going to be unfulfilled.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. So backtracking to if someone is looking to find a partnership like this, how do they find one?
Okay, great topic. I'll give a short breakdown.
July.
So yeah. Well, I'll tell you what worked for me from personal experience, because at least I can speak knowing at least it worked for me. So the first thing, going back to what I said earlier, was I actually had to be okay being single and focus on that and build a really fun, interesting, creative life that didn't involve someone else, because I was so used to having a partner and my life was fun and it was interesting and I had a lot going on. I've been an entrepreneur for years, but deep down inside, there was that fear of, well, if I'm single and what if I'm not happy? What if my life falls apart? Those lonely nights when I'm all alone are going to be horrible. So there's all this fear, and that could keep someone in a relationship that they shouldn't actually be in, and maybe settle or choose a different future that isn't right for them because they're just fearful of that fear coming true. So removing that fear and actually going into the life of, oh, wait, actually, there's so many great things about being single, and it's not better than being in a relationship, but if you're doing it right, I think it's an amazing time, and you can build a lot of knowing about yourself in that time. And what you don't want to do is get so hyper independent that you start not needing a relationship, or telling you that a relationship is going to drag me down, or it's not something that I want to have. You start building up fears of what a relationship could do or take away from your singleness. So for me, it was removing that fear and then just living a really great, amazing life the way that you want to do it, defined by your terms, what makes you happy, doing things that you enjoy, whether it's traveling or certain hobbies or interests, or it doesn't matter how weird it is, but you have to do those. And through that, you'll attract, or you'll go to some event or meet some person that could be the person that you want to have, or through them, you'll meet the person that you want to be with. So there has to be like an openness to allowing that in. And you'll know that it's the right person when you know what you want. So you need to write a list. And I'd done this twice before. The first time I wrote a list was 20 items. I wrote in bullet points. The second time for meeting you, I wrote 40 items. And I'm like, oh, well, it's double. That's good. That's so many items. Meanwhile, how many items did you write, or how long was yours?
It was a 5-page thank you letter to God.
So really, there's no limit of how much you can write. But the whole point is that you need to be clear of what you want and what is right for you. So if you haven't, and you also need to date enough people or be around certain types to know what is right and what is wrong. So I can't be with someone who's quiet and reserved. I need sort of a match for the energy. And like I don't think anyone would describe you as quiet or reserved, 98% of the time, right? So it's figuring out exactly what you want. And then the key there is to actually believe that you can have it. I mean, anybody can write down a list, of all the amazing things that they want to have in their life. But if you don't really believe that you can have it, or that you're willing and able to have it, then it's probably not going to happen. And then being open to the flow. So there was no strict timeline or definition, or me, even as the masculine, as a man saying, okay, I'm going to find a woman. I was like, you know what, actually, if I was single for the next year or 2 years, I'm super happy with that. That sounds great to me. And I said that to myself. And I think maybe 3 months or 4 months later is when I met you. And then because I wrote the list and I knew what I was looking for, then I meet you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, this checks my list. I know what I'm looking for. And I have the openness to want to be in a relationship, but not a fearful driven, fear of, oh, I need to be in a relationship because I'm not okay being single. So that was the formula that worked for me. And it was conscious and unconscious. I feel, you can't sit down every day and say, this is how the day is going to go. We all, you might try and do that, but no day is going to go according to plan. So I think it's more so having a rough idea and then just going with the flow from there.
Yeah. And I would like to add, remaining open is very important, because you may think that it's going to happen a certain way. Or I hear this a lot of, oh, my husband isn't on the apps. I hear you don't want that, but you don't know. I met the girl who introduced Kevin and I through a guy that I matched with on Hinge, and it was just a friendly connection. But I would match with guys on Hinge, and if it wasn't a vibe, I would still be their friend, because usually they were like good people, normal people. And I was very open to, if it ain't them, it could be one of their friends. Who knows, right? It's what if anything could happen, really. And so, yeah, I see that a lot in women, especially being like, I don't want this, I don't want that. But you don't know what could actually come from that.
Yeah, that openness is so important. And there's so many ways that we try to protect ourselves, and it's kind of sneaky a lot of the times too.
Yeah.
And I think the release of expectations too that you guys have both been talking about is another really big element of not putting so much pressure on yourself or the other person.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like when we had that first weekend together, there was absolutely no expectation of this being my person or the person that I was going to spend the rest of my life with. But in a way, we took that risk, if you want to call it, of like opening all the way fully to this connection that, after this weekend, who knows if we were going to see each other again. But we both opened fully to the love that was flowing between us. And I feel like if I was in my head about, oh, he lives in Canada, this ain't going nowhere, it's trying to be like, you're just trying to, get some, and then I'm just here. And it's no, but I don't know that. And, he ended up a few months later moving to San Diego to be with me. And now we're living in Canada.
How crazy life is.
So unexpected. And it sounds like you, Kevin, were really like, you were kind of on the path of finding a lifelong partner. Would you say that at that stage or no?
So yes, but if I'm being honest with you, there was no doubt in my mind ever, even when I was in high school, that I wouldn't have that. In my head, I'm just like, that's like a given. And I don't think I consciously thought that. But when I look back, any of the fears that I've had have been around being alone or being with myself, and all of the weird fears that I made up in my head. But when I remove that, then I'm like, oh, actually, it's just obvious to me to find just the perfect match. That's great. And perfect is also it's not a great word, because like there's many different partners that I could have chosen and could have had great lives, and you could have done that too. It's not like there's just one that's like the best and the most perfect one, and all the others are never going to match up to it. I think there's tons of great partners, but you guys have to both be willing to make it work, and you have to like see the same vision and want to go down the same path. So sometimes you have people that they're not even fully consciously aware of the fact that they just want if a woman wants a 6'2" guy who has a lot of money, who has a certain type of job, that almost says more about her than it does about him, because it's like a handbag accessory. It's, well, I mean something valuable and important when I have this type of partner. And it's not actually about the partnership or the life you're creating. It's about your ego feeling really good about having a certain thing checked off. Instead, if you have two people that are just like, I want love, but also I am very loving and I have a lot of love to give, and these are the things that I value, and I want to be in relationship, and I don't want to date someone for a year or two, and then when it gets too hard, I'm going to dip out because that's just too hard for me to do. And instead, I'm going to figure it out because this person is awesome and I love them, and there's a million great things about them, and they might have downsides. But then if you're single, there's downsides to that. Then if you date someone else, there's downsides to that. I mean, you can't escape that, really. Going back to your question, I think it's always something that I've definitely just assumed, but it was just, well, which path do you want to take, right? Which color do you want for this life? Do you want blue? Do you want green? Do you want pink? To me, it's just, which one do you want? And then you can go from there.
Beautiful. The choice. I feel like it's the choice of choosing the person that you're with, because there's 7 billion people. If you're looking for your person, you're gonna find them. Assume it. Yeah, you said, I love that you said, yeah, you just assumed, because that's such a manifestation hack. This man is manifested, not by human design, but he just be manifesting shit, and he didn't even realize what he was doing.
Mm-hmm.
I love watching people create things and just knowing what they want, and then it comes to life. And I think a lot of people forget that they have that power, and that's everyone has that capability if they were just to believe enough in that. But a question I'm having is a few of my best girlfriends are in these partnerships where they can't tell if it's the right person, and they like broken up and then come back together, and there's just still qualities that don't feel aligned, but then there's all these signs, so then they stay, but then they're still like questioning. There's so much confusion. So how do you support someone when they're in that kind of phase? Or both parties, like the man and the woman, are both feeling that.
Yeah. So the first thing that comes to mind for me is if you're questioning it, it's not real. That's a huge warning sign. And the thing about that is that it is very difficult for your ego or for what you want to accept that. Because if you have confusion about a person, you're thinking logically. Because if you feel into it, then you'll know, okay, actually, they might have good qualities, because most of us do, 98% of us do. But if you're questioning it, that's because the heart is saying no and your brain is saying yes, and you don't want to listen to your heart. So you're just going to go with the brain because you're smart and you can justify it. And that's a hard pill to swallow, right? If you just look at the truth of it, it doesn't matter, brain, of how many great things you think here. A no is a no from the heart. And that brings up a lot of fear, because then I have to go through a breakup. Then I lose this person. Then I'm going to be sad. Then I'm going to be hurt. I might be alone.
Then I hurt them.
So many things. So I think it's like a protection mechanism to keep you in the relationship and keep you on the wheel of being pretty satisfied, but deep down inside, not really. And, that's when people start settling, they start choosing paths that aren't really the greatest, most wonderful path that they could choose. But that's also one of the more harder ones to pick, because if you know deep down inside this isn't for me, then you have some hard decisions to make. You have some confrontations, you have some potentially lonely nights or emotional expression of a lot of big feelings, and that's very difficult for a lot of people to do. So it reminds me a lot of I've never smoked, but I heard something about smoking, or really any addiction, it could be drinking or anything that you have, is that the pain of quitting is worse than the pain of continuing. So if smoking kills you after 30 years, but the pain of quitting, 25 years ago, it just seemed too big, but somehow what's the alternative? You really have to look at it that way. So I think confusion is a really big red flag, basically, that you got to take a deeper look.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. And I used to have a pattern of staying in relationships long past their expiration date because I didn't want to hurt the person. And I was like, they're so good. But it's like, at what cost? Because what isn't in alignment for you is also not in alignment for the other person. And not only are you blocking like your aligned soulmate, but you're blocking theirs too. So if you care about the person and you're worried about hurting them, think about that.
Yeah, I always like to refer to that too, because it's not just you that you're stopping, if it's not for you, then it's clearly not for them either. And yeah, I think we just get so wrapped up in the emotions. Yeah, hopefully that helps them. Because I just know a lot of people in this but it's really strange, actually. I know quite a few people in this in-between stage where they're both committed, but then they're like, well, is it trauma? Is it, is it this? Is it that? And yeah, so I hope that helps. And another question I have for you, Kevin, is how, as a man, can you make a woman actually feel safe and her to soften into her feminine?
That's a great question. I could go on for a long time about this, but on the top of my head, going back to what I said earlier about being firm but loving, I feel like is a really good place to be. So as a man, you can't yell and scream and become domineering and try and control and push your way into getting what you want. Clearly, no person, but especially no woman, is going to feel safe with that. You also, on the other hand, can't be so free and so avoidant of confrontation and avoidant of speaking up or saying what you actually think, or being very, very quiet as well, to allow her to be the person that you think she should be, and blah, blah, blah. So there's a middle ground where you are giving a lot of structure and a lot of firm but at the same time, gentle love. If that's the best way I can put it. So the same way that a parent will say to their kid, you know what, I know you didn't try hard enough with that. You have more in you. And instead of saying, how could you? You need to try harder. You're grounded for a week. You can't, that's not going to do anything. You need to call them out on, hey, what you're doing is not enough. And I love you. And I believe in you. And you're going to go try again because I want to see that from you. There's a massive difference between those two scenarios. So in order for you to do that as a man, though, you actually have to be pretty good with yourself, secure. You have to have done some work. You need to understand what the masculine and the feminine is like with the certain dynamics that are at play. You need to have some work done around your father and wounding or experiences with the masculine, and also with your ego as well. Like you can't be protecting yourself with your ego all the time and trying to battle, because the feminine will just fight back and you're going to create a huge mess with that. So the firm and gentle is a very like that will take you a long way.
I love what you said about the ego thing too, because it's like when a woman is in her divine feminine, she's gonna kind of like dismantle all that bullshit anyway. And if you're trying to just keep up this facade or be a certain way and protect yourself, like you said, it's not gonna work.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny too, because I feel like what he said about firm and loving, it's so important, because I'm an Aries moon, like I have very fiery personality. And if a man allows it, I will run the show. And it's not fun to do that, you know. I need to be put in my place sometimes, but lovingly.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I can surrender to you. I can bow down and give you the control because I feel okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
Good job, baby.
Okay, and now the last question of the podcast for each of you individually is, what is one of your favorite romantic memories?
A great question. Yeah, there's a lot.
You can share.
Okay, the first one that just popped into my head, very first thing, so I'm just going to roll with it, was last year, we just had a beautiful escape to Southeast Asia, which wasn't even really planned. We had just life threw life at us. And all of a sudden we're traveling and we're going to Asia, and it's not just a short trip. It's a 2.5, almost 3-month trip. And we did a lot of exploring together. There's a ton of really beautiful moments when you're on a high. And then there's a lot of beautiful moments when you're traveling in another country and you've been there for weeks or months at a time, and you're just sick and tired and irritable, and you're going through all the ups and downs. But towards the end of the trip, it was my birthday, and we had this beautiful, magical day where we just spent my birthday at this beautiful day club in Bali, and just around great people, great times. It's one of my favorite memories. And I think it just happened from the openness and the willingness to say, okay, well, if plans change, I'll do plan B with you. Screw it. Plan A doesn't work out. Okay, let's go to Asia. Let's go travel for a bit. Let's go create good memories out of a potentially bad, quote unquote, feeling experience. And I think that's exactly what we did. And we came home feeling very fulfilled from it.
Yeah.
So it was great.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. And for me, there's so many beautiful memories that we have created, but we have had a lot of twists and turns in life where we had to just be like, from one moment to the next, complete change of plans. And I feel like that happened last year in October, where we were going to move to Florida, and we literally couldn't happen because visas and things. And so in that moment, we decided we were going to move to Vancouver. And it was actually like, it was kind of a relief, but it was also like, whoa, we had to like recalibrate. But the way that we both handled that, the changes, the twists and turns, because this happened 3 times, was just so beautiful. And it solidified so much for us, because we both had to burn all the ships. He got rid of all of his belongings and we went down to 1 suitcase. I ended up having to get rid of all of my belongings and go down to 1 suitcase. So then we could build this life together and create this life together, and again, choose and say yes. And so I guess it is a romantic memory, but
not a typical romance, but
not
it's like
romance.
it's like a deep I'll jump off this bridge if you'll do it too.
Yeah.
But
I'm gonna do whatever you do, and we're doing this life together, and no matter what that means, you're home, so I don't even give a fuck where we are.
Aw, cuties. Oh, I love those too, because those were, yeah, people don't usually answer in that way, so that was nice too. And I'm also curious, where's the spiciest place you guys have had sex together?
In the forest.
Ooh.
We have done this many times on hikes, but we go on hikes and we're like deep in the forest, and there's a beautiful ethereal bed of moss, and we just, we get freaky on it, and the trees are supporting us, they're holding space, the slugs are around, like, yeah.
a good one. That's a good one. Yeah, out in nature. And nature here is so beautiful. So yeah, it's a very cool experience. For me, I think it's at the sex club. We went to a sex club last year, and that was, to me, was like, wait, what? People do this? What's going on here? And I didn't have a lot of expectations for it, and it ended up being better than my expectations. So we had that experience, and that was really cool to kind of check that off the list and do some exploring in the realm of some really weird, crazy stuff, but actually isn't that crazy when you think about it. But before doing it, you're terrified. You're like, what are we doing right now?
Being seen by strangers in your erotic expression with the person you love is,
It's a big one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
They're everywhere if you know where to look.
that's true.
Yeah, they are everywhere.
So true. Oh, thank you guys so much for being so open and vulnerable. And if someone wants to work with you, what are you offering and where can they find you?
I'm on Instagram and TikTok as Alina the Primal Mystic, and I have a medicine retreat. I serve combo, and we're going to be doing mushrooms and sensual embodiment. And then I also have a 12-week program called Powerful as Fuck that's going to be launching soon. And yeah.
Beautiful. Well, I work with men exclusively. So if you're a man listening to this and you're interested, you can go to my Instagram, my TikTok. It's Kevin X Pasco on both platforms. And I have a free 3-day mini course. A couple thousand guys have taken it so far. It's pretty amazing. You can get on the email list from there. And I'm also going to be launching a course. So if you sign up to the email list, you'll be the first one to get notified when the course launches. So I'm excited for that.
Thank ya. You made it to the end of the episode, so now it's time for our snuggly heart breath of the day. Place a hand or both hands, if it's safe to do so, over your heart and take a big breath into your heart center. Open your mouth and let it go. I'm so grateful to have shared this time with you. If you enjoyed this combo, please share with your besties and your fam. And if you're a visual person like me, fly over to YouTube and watch the video. If you want to do a random act of kindness today, please leave a 5-star review so more people in the world can get their heart snuggled. You're helping tremendously when you do this, so thank you so much. And as a gift for doing so, I'll give you my Soften Your Heart Medi that feels like an exhale and a hug from within. When you leave a review and email me the screenshot to heartsnuggles@alivetoenjoy.com, you can also find the email in the show notes and you'll get the free meditation. Sending you the warmest, comfiest hug and lots of unexpected blessings your way. Remember that every single person just wants to be loved. So how can you be loved today?